All right, a beautiful song there that we got from Lyra saying Believer, taking us to 21 minutes after the hour 1 o'clock. And I did say that around about this time we will be getting into the first conversation of the day. And today we have Donald Hjul, Director from H&H Services, and we're going to be talking about the business of organizational development. He is already in studio and waiting graciously to start. Donald, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Thandi.
Thank you so much for coming through
Well,
today.
thank you for the invite. It's an absolute honor and privilege.
Awesome.
Because this is where things happen, communities.
Yes, definitely. Let me give you a chance to tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into the world of business.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Thandi. Principally where I come from, I'm born in Zambia. I'm schooled in Zimbabwe, but I came to South Africa in 1982, probably before many of your listeners were born.
Including me.
What actually happened was I wanted to be a vet, a veterinary surgeon, but unfortunately life passed me by, and because at school we had a choice of English or Afrikaans in Zimbabwe. I chose French.
Okay.
And then I couldn't become a vet because I needed to have Afrikaans to go
is
to
a
honors
language.
report. So anyway, long story short, I call it my gap year in the retail sector in a company called Dion Stores. And then I joined a multinational company as a trainee called Siemens. And we were involved in a lot of infrastructural projects. So I was on the commercial management side of the business. And I often refer to it as growing up in the business. So that's where I grew up in terms of the business world.
Sure.
And I think what excited me at the time is that, and what's brought me to this point in my life is we did a lot of developmental work for emerging contractors and the emergence of businesses in the 1980s, because being a multinational, we supported the development of people as well in terms of that. And the other anomaly that we had in that particular environment, of which I was very fortunate, was that my bosses in our HR department, even in the 80s and 90s, they always developed me as an exit strategy.
Okay.
So I was always developed in order to leave. And
All right.
didn't mean leaving the company, but it meant leaving the position. So you've got variety, and that helped the growth and development. So simply put, I got to the year 2000. I went to East London in 1997 to run the province for the corporate business, and we had 8 business units. I had the probably privilege and pleasure to actually. We had to build a clinic for Madiba near Vezo because he had tea with our CEO. So I was very fortunate to be part of that process, and we built a clinic. And anyway, so in 2000, my wife and I, then fiance, we got married.
Sure.
30th of September, so we've just had our anniversary.
Beautiful. Spring.
And of course, I invited my bosses to my wedding, and I gave them my resignation at the wedding and said,
my gosh.
no, it's time. We had discussed it and debated
So
it.
this was the formality.
And it was a formality, but I thought it was the right environment. So I had to stay on till the year end anyway.
Okay.
But I think what it was really a drive to say, if you're going to go on your own in business, if you're going to tackle that road,
Yourself.
do it while you're reasonably young.
Okay.
And don't wait too long. And that was actually the thing in those days. So I went on my own, still stayed in East London. So we spent 20 good years in East London.
Wow.
Or East London surrounds. And yeah, it was actually a bit of a baptism of fire because, going from a corporate world into your own business is daunting.
There's no safety net. There's
Absolutely.
no definites. There's no definites at all. You just working it and learning it as you go.
Absolutely. And I think I was taught a few good lessons in life, and this comes to what I do as a business or what I do with people. First of all, I was taught at a very young age by very good mentors that sometimes who you think are the most important people in the business are not the most important people.
Not necessarily.
So we don't delve anymore in the way we operate in terms of hierarchies and status. We like to look at the human capital portion of the business. So we put humans at the center of an organization. So, it's like driving a car. You can have the most wonderful vehicle full of fuel, even though fuel's expensive now. full of fuel, it can have all the bells and whistles, but without a driver, it's going nowhere.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
we take that approach in what we call organizational development and design.
Okay.
In helping organizations to develop themselves, because the other thing that's important about human beings at the center of an organization is that any organization wants to develop, change, or transform must be able to understand that the people are the thing that drives the business.
Wow.
And so we often talk in this game about the DNA of the organization. And it takes me back to when I started out on my own. I joined a national network of organizational development and design, call it practitioners. We were all independent. And over the years, we became 75 units in South Africa. It's not in existence anymore. It was called ITO Focus, and we owned the Buffalo City and King Williamstown
That area.
units, that region. And one thing that struck me thinking about talking to you today is that I'll never forget the two principals in Pretoria. Two Afrikaans guys, really nice guys, psychologists by trade. They always asked the question, we were warned about this question, you know, they said, what makes you unique? Why should we let you into our network? So what makes you
different?
different?
Why should we work with you?
And
basically?
I must say, I don't think they were expecting the answer. My answer was my DNA.
Okay, you carry...
You know,
okay.
Often people like to say, no, but I market this way, I'll do that way, and I do that. And I said, no, it's my DNA. That's what makes me different. It's just the way of the philosophy. So we put human beings at the center of an organization. And nowadays, as you probably are aware, we do organizational design and development through I call it the organic process, and I collaborate with people. For example, in this region, we collaborate, myself in AR training and consulting.
Okay.
And because I don't believe in trying to jump around, I don't believe in competitiveness. I know it's a thing, but I believe collaboration is the future of business.
Sure. Now, Donald, that is more than a mouthful. But
apologize.
No, it's not a bad thing. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but what I mean is you've given us a whole lot. And I want you to also touch on some of the services like that you offer at H&H Services, like specifically. So if someone were to call on you, what kind of services would they be able to get around organizational development or whatever else that you do in the business?
Absolutely. You know, organizational development as a subject matter is very broad, as you know.
Sure.
So we delve into areas where someone is facing their biggest challenges. And I think that's the key issue here. Because one of the very important philosophies in organizational development, especially when you look at it in an organic manner, is that the years, and it did work for many years, I think the years of plug and play or copy and paste do not work anymore.
So there needs to be
tailor-made, and that's exactly it. We do customized and tailor-made solutions for business. And what we normally like to do in that environment is that we first look at the business side of the business, and we say, whether you're a startup or whether you are an existing going concern, we like to look at your financials, we like to look at your structure, we like to debate and interrogate with you exactly what are the burning issues you are facing, and it's very daunting these days. I think our famous pandemic changed that profile.
Sure.
I think it changed the way that humans behave amongst each other as well, because we now have the online world. I'm not a fan of online.
I love it.
No, it definitely has a place, you know, in terms of certain things. So together with organizational development is capacity building. So part of what we also do is offer specialized workshops in various subject matter ranges, you know, to clients or to communities or to companies. And I think in that sense, when we talk about subject matter ranges, we don't necessarily have standard training courses as such, so we're not a training company.
We're more solutions driven.
Absolutely.
Based on.
So we ask you, what are your burning issues? What are the things that
problem? What's your problem? What's your problem?
I like that. Or the challenge.
Yes, that's the challenge. Yeah.
And then we tailor make the subject matter around that, because often in let's call it the training industry. I think there's a desperate need for it. We know that skills development
it's important.
Is a massive part of any developing country.
Yeah.
And we know we've got scarce skills. So we are not saying training doesn't play a role, but we are saying that companies that are experiencing sort of certain challenges that they just want to tweak or transform, we like to operate in that space. Because then we can target the intervention to what's needed. Because you get general training. And I think that's the way we like to do. And we do a lot of online as well. We do online
sessions and consultations
and training workshops, for want of a better phrase. And we do that. The beauty with the online is that we can do that for South African clients,
wherever.
African clients, and we even delve into Europe and the Middle East.
Beautiful.
So there is a lot of scope there. But I will be honest, my preference is to be with people.
Physical. You want the physical human connection.
Absolutely.
I understand it. And maybe it's got something to do with your age as well. I don't know. Okay. And do you ever find situations where the company doesn't know? Like, I'm just not getting things right. Like, I'm this business and I don't know where to say the problem is. And in such situations, what do you do? Do you first do assessments? Like, because I'm sure there are things like that happen where you go in there, you're like, what's your problem? And I'm like, I don't know. That's why I have you here, so that you can help me to figure it out.
I think, Thandi, you've said it exactly correct. You know, you only call in a provider or someone who can assist you.
Yeah.
And, you know, one thing, I think when you talk about that, what we don't like to do is parachute in and out.
Okay, sure.
So, you know, there is a certain amount of parachuting that can be done into a business. But the problem is, I use the old Western, you know, the old Western movies as an analogy for it. We don't like to go in, cause a tornado or whirlwind, and then all we leave is that dusty piece of grass running around, you know, and no one knows what happened. This whirlwind happened.
Yeah.
So I think it's a very, very interesting question. It's about interrogating the situation and asking always the right questions. There are models, and we have adapted our own models. So just for the listeners, when you talk about the company, I'm an independent company.
Okay.
And the philosophy is to collaborate. So we collaborate with people like AR Training and others around the country, and they do the same with us.
Sure.
And I think that's where the strength lies, in not only the ideas, but the variety of approaches.
Sure.
And that's critical, I think, for any emerging business at the moment, is to understand the purpose that you have. You know, we talk a lot, and you get all these gurus, Simon Sinek and Brian Ulrich, Brian Tracy, and all of these guys, and they are not wrong. Is that people find it very difficult to identify their personal purpose.
Sure.
And so they also talk about that, which is something we've adopted for years and years.
Okay.
Rather appreciate why you're doing something than what you're doing. I mean, it's important to know what you're
the
doing.
Why, yeah, obviously.
Do the why. Why am I in this? And there's nothing wrong. Some people go in it for the money.
And that's a good why, as long as you know the why.
Absolutely. As long as
that's your why.
And you're aware of the pitfalls that go with it. And
yeah.
You know, there are quick buck solutions to many businesses, but if you want to have a long-term sustainable business and growth, you need to really be in it for the long game, and it simply takes hard sweat and tears. That's what it takes. It takes focus. And, you know, any advice for people out there is just know exactly what it is you want to do.
Okay.
And that's also difficult to unpack. You know, I think it's very daunting for school leavers at the moment. And my collaborator, AR Training, they develop things in career planning, classroom management, and areas like that. We are here in Komani at the moment because we are assisting a local retailer, not in anything fancy, no plug-and-play stuff. They are called WG Micah. But what is attractive for us to them is that they are an organization that is very organic in its leadership.
Okay.
I think I've listened to one or two of your podcasts with the WG Micah people.
Yeah.
And what I can say is that when you listen to them talk, they talk about the customer and the company. They don't talk about themselves. That is a very, very unusual thing to encounter these days in a business sphere, you know, and it's very tempting to talk about me, but it's a very different thing when you are customer-centric and focused on what does the customer want? Why are we here? We're here to help customers, and I think that's a good example of it.
Yeah, interesting. And if we also look at, whether businesses, organizations understand the importance of investing in organizational development, in human development,
Yes.
I don't know if we truly understand the importance of that. I think we don't get it actually, because we see it as an expense. We see it as, why is it necessary? Because if I employ someone, they just need to come in here and do their job description and that. But I want you to touch on some advantages that actually come with investing in organizational development, in the human being, the people within the business.
Now you've opened Pandora's box.
Oh my God.
For us, and I say this on behalf of all of our collaborators as well, I think that is such a critical question today that many organizations are beginning to understand, and the pandemic actually changed that environment. So, Simon Sinek, for example, talks about leaders eating last.
Yes, leaders eat last. Yeah, I know.
And he also talks about the why. If you go back to the 80s and 90s, and this is hopefully answering the question as best as possible, even in the 70s, 80s, Jack Welch, who's a very famous guy in America, his solution to making more money was based on the metrics of the organization. So if we need to make more money, we need to cut people, cut salaries. We need to drive targets. We need to drive metrics. We've realized now that that doesn't work so well.
It doesn't.
You've hinted at it already, is that your people are your greatest asset. And we see organizations, they say that all the time. Our people are our greatest assets.
True.
But you find them in the income statement as an expenditure item.
Ish.
So they're the first to go when you want to cut costs. But actually, if you want to treat them as capital assets, like your building, your equipment that drives the business growth, then you must treat them like assets. They need to be nurtured. They need to be maintained. They need to be guided. They need to be mentored. They need to be coached. They need to be developed in a way that suits their personal vision, meeting the organization vision. And when you can find that right mix,
balance,
you get the best out of people. And I go back to the corporate environment I grew up in, which I'm very fortunate to have had, is that because they always developed me as an exit strategy, I was always motivated to do something different and more. So it was meeting my personal vision, but also meeting their goals, and knowing that if they keep me occupied and interested, they get the best out of me. And the best is simply the best. You can't measure it against someone else.
It's so powerful, because I always say that, when you think about people not even being in the business, how does it even function? How do you move it forward? How do you grow it? How do you even... You can't operate without the people in the organization. And if you're looking at the bottom line, if the people are effective, your bottom line increases. So it's like the one is directly dependent on the other.
Absolutely.
So instead of focusing on, maybe just looking at the money from a perspective of how much you're paying the people, pay them what they need to be paid so that you can get the best out of them, invest in them, support them so that they can give 100% into the company, which will directly reflect on the bottom line again.
Absolutely.
So it's such a beautiful, beautiful concept. And I think, we need to talk about it more so that, organizations, businesses can grasp it and take the leap of faith and put a coin behind it and see the results, the return on that investment.
Thandi, I think you've hit the nail on the head. At the end of the day, of course, sales are important. Of course, revenue is important. Of course, salaries, paying people salaries and wages is important. But if you can get your workforce to a level where they are enjoying what they're doing, they feel comfortable in what they're doing, they know that there's a bigger picture, they know that sustainable growth will actually keep them in a job for longer.
Sure.
You're going to find people will perform at the ultimate level,
best.
at the optimum. And, we also do a lot in the performance management environment, and I'm sure many of your listeners, and you've heard of the SMART principles.
Okay, yes.
You know, the specific, measurable, achievable, etc.
Realistic, time bound.
We actually add two letters onto that. We call them the
Smarter.
SMARTER principles.
Okay.
Because, and the other E is that you need to make things exhilarating, exciting, engaging, based on excellence. So, and then the other R is to also understand that there needs to be some recognition or reward or some form of understanding that people, when they get motivated, they are not motivated by other people, they are motivated by themselves. So give them the platform on which they feel that they're adding value, and then you will get the most out of them. And also reward for us is not necessarily financial reward, but we do understand people need to pay bills.
Yes.
People need to pay bills. But if someone sees himself developing and growing as an individual to something better and something bigger, I'm quite confident that they will be very driven to do what they need to do.
Wow, Donald, it's been amazing, and I would like for us to continue, but unfortunately, time is against us. I wanted to then give you an opportunity to provide us with methods of contacting you in case someone wants to, you know, lift their hand and say, come and assess our business and see how you can be able to help out. You know, how can we structure a relationship and things like that? How do they find you?
Yeah, I think there's, first of all, website, www.hjuldonald.com.
Hjul is
HJULDONALD.com, and the Donald is as in duck. I have email addresses, but you can find them on the website.
Okay, sure.
And my cell is 082 556 4704. But I would also suggest that people, especially from this region, get hold of Adele Richardson.
Sure.
At AR Training and Business Consulting. 082 566 5375.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for coming through, Donald.
Thank you very much.
It's been really, really great.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Awesome. Interesting conversation with Donald Hjul, Director H&H Services. When we come back from the break, we are going to be talking about some of the things that he touched on organizational development. Make sure that you stick around.